and you have time to read them with coffee or wine, your choice. Right, so. Also coming up, and Cindy will be giving us more detail about this at the end of the meeting, but on Saturday at 2 o'clock at the main branch of the public library, there will be a town hall with or without more books. There's a part of me that still wishes that he would come, because I think that would be a really fun meeting. But I know the people who have been working on that have been working hard to make it a valuable opportunity for all of us to learn something and ask questions and meet other people who care about the same issue. So please make a note to join that. You do need to make a reservation. Space is tight for that meeting. And again, Cindy will be filling us in on that. I never thought in my life that I would be marching for science. And I was always more of a social science-y kind of person, but I know how important science is in my life. There's a National March for Science. It's one of the many marches coming up. But the March for Science in Huntsville is being put together by a great group of people. Many of them are members. I encourage you to join us on Saturday, April 22nd, which also happens to be Earth Day. Science, you all. Starts at UAH at the Shelby Center and goes across the bridge to the Rocket, the Space and Rocket Museum. And I hope to see a lot of you there. I'm bringing my kids in their t-shirts and science. I'm going to ask Alice to come up and talk for a few minutes about the papers that are on your table and the program of Emerge.
Thanks, Susan. My name's Alice Stillbeck, and I'm going to take just a few minutes of the program to talk about Emerge Alabama. And if, like me, you were dismayed when you went to vote and looked at the ballot in November and realized that we generally aren't even trying to field opposition to the Republicans in Alabama, then you should support Emerge Alabama. If, like me, you were angered at the misogyny that was blatant throughout the last presidential election, then you should support Emerge Alabama. If you want to see more Democratic candidates and more successful Democratic candidates and more successful women Democratic candidates, then I urge you to support Emerge Alabama. Emerge Alabama is let's call it a rising affiliate. We're on the path to become an affiliate of Emerge America. Emerge America has one mission, and that's to increase the number of Democratic women leaders from diverse backgrounds in public office through recruitment, training, and providing a powerful network. There's a lot packed into that, and I'd love to tell you about it when we have more time. Emerge America has been successful in achieving this mission for about 15 years now. They started in California in 2002 and now have 18 affiliate state chapters. It'll be 19 when Alabama reaches affiliate status, which we hope is fairly soon. These are serious people who know seriously what it takes to train successful candidates and they know how to help them develop their own support network so they're not out there alone learning it as they go. They've trained over 2,000 women in that time period, and 52% of their graduates have run for elected office and or been appointed to a board or commission. Of those women who've run for office, 70% have won. In some cases, those winners have been responsible for flipping the state house in terms of Republican to Democrat. We need Emerge America in Alabama, and we're bringing it here, and we need your help to get it launched so that we can have some sort of an impact on the 2018 elections. The training involves over 70 hours of training and focuses on the Democratic platform. It's not a competition for the Ready to Run program, and we're actually coordinating with them. But it is more in-depth, and it is Democratic specific and women only, and it's actually complementary in that way. Some people, this training occurs over a 5 to 7 month period. Some people can't make that kind of commitment. They may be more appropriate to go to Ready to Run. Some people go to Ready to Run and say, I need more. They can funnel right on into Emerge Alabama. I'd love to spend lots of time telling you all about it, but I only have a few minutes, and I appreciate Susan putting me on the agenda so I could do it. So I'm hoping that you'll sign up for one of our informational and fun events that will be held on what we're calling Emerge Week. That's the week after Easter, starting on April 17th. We have 3 different events at different locations with different hosts, and those are on this sheet that hopefully you have somewhere in front of you. And that lists the time and place and the hostesses. And we'll have good things to eat and drink, and we'll give you some information that everybody here really, if you're dedicated enough to come to this, I hope that you'll come to one of these meetings, because this can really change things for us. If you're interested, even if this isn't a commitment to come, but if you say, yeah, I think right now, looking at my schedule, I'll come. If you fill one of these out and just leave it on the table, we'll send you a reminder in email so that you don't forget, and we'll send you an e-invite. And if you know of somebody that you think might come, please take one of the flyers that has all the information with you. If you can't come, but you say, I'm behind that, I want to donate now, please Google Emerge Alabama, hit the donate button, and donate what you can. I also want to call your attention at the very bottom of the larger form. It says, get a taste of Emerge. There is a 2-hour training sampler. It's one of our national people is coming in, and they're going to do a 2-hour sort of sampler for potential candidates and supporters to see what it's all about and how it works out. That's going to be in Birmingham on April 30th from 3 to 5. It requires pre-registration. Slots are limited. When I looked this morning, there were about 75 left. They had 125, so this has just started going out. It's filled up fast. You have the information down there, if you want to get the link via email, just fill out one of the little slips and put a note on it that says, please send me the link for Taste of Emerge, if you don't want to type all that in. So that's my pitch. I hope I stayed in my time frame. And
Give Alice a round of applause for that.
Thank you.
I can say that some people often look at me and think that I'm going to ask them for money, and that's usually true. But Emerge is something that I've only been involved with for a couple of weeks, but I'm excited. It's a very, very professionally run organization. They know what they're doing. They're not creating it from scratch. And the people across the state who have gotten involved, who are supporting this, are really people who are deeply, deeply committed to getting more women into office and more Democratic women into office. And I'm excited about what's going to happen. I'm one of the mysterious hosts for this, so I hope you come on April 19th to my house and to Alice's and Pam's. You can even try to come to all 3. So I'm going to turn this over now to Pam Moss to introduce our speakers for today.
Thank you, Susan. You know, we as a people, and we as a world in general, tend to only support things that affect us. We may not be a Muslim. We may not be an immigrant. We may not have poisoned water like Flint, Michigan. We may not be protesting at Standing Rock, but we are a people of the world, and we understand that we must represent everyone, everybody across the world. We as a people must follow the recipe that Hillary Clinton gave us last week. She gave us 4 ingredients, and we have to put them together. And those ingredients are resist, insist, persist, and enlist. If I only have one piece of advice for Devyn, it would be, Devyn, always lead in love. Stand up and resist those that would influence with hate. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome our newest Huntsville City Councilman, Devyn Keith.
Thank you so much. I want to say, when Ms. Pam reached out and said, Devyn, do you want to come talk to a room full of young, beautiful women? I said, what man would say no? I come to you today, and if I was to ever give my own bio, it would just say, Devyn Keith, a mess of a man, but God. Not too far from here, just a little bit past that 12th hole, I was born in a housing project called Northwoods, to the most amazing mother this world has ever known. Not always making the right decisions, but making decisions with love. And today, I'm not going to take too much of your time, but I'm going to get a chance to speak from the heart. And before I get started, I do want to say I am beyond honored, because you being here implies your ability to understand the importance of what I'm going to talk about today, and that is the process. I give my hats off to Ms. Susan and everybody else who was a part of Democratic Women. And as I look at Misha, who was a big part of the reason and ran my team and is the reason that I'm here, I am thankful for strong women. For nobody will say it, but I'll tell you now. Everybody likes to say, you know, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps. You know, I made it on my own, but I can promise you, nobody in this world got here without 9 months of labor. So my hat's off to every strong, beautiful woman in this room for the identification that we have to fight for our future. It was the early 1900s, and W. Du Bois tells a beautiful story. If you've heard this, don't get mad at me. I just love the story. A young man living in Boston finishes up at Boston University, gets his master's, gets his PhD, and around that time, after the Freedmen's Bureau and the Reconstruction period had been dissolved, a lot of these land-grant colleges, like Fisk, and Alabama A&M, and Tennessee State, are looking for teachers. Amid the issues of desegregation in the South and the growth of Jim Crow, African Americans were scrambling to find a way to educate themselves. So vouchers went out everywhere across this nation, into the New England area. A famous professor from Fisk gets a voucher and says, I'll commit. I'll go down to the Jim Crow South, teach education to the newly freed slaves, first generation of education. They send them a voucher, and they say there's 2 stints you must take, a train ride down to the Carolinas. From the Carolinas over to Nashville, and we'll pick you up from there. Well, he had never been south of the Mason-Dixon. A lot of you, some with the gray hair, seasoned individuals, even if you colored it last night, know that these Yankees don't really know how different this world is in the South. So he rides the first leg on an integrated cart, excited, amid it, about the change that he is committed to bring. He gets down to the Carolinas, steps off the cart, and goes for the first time in his life into a segregated waiting hall. Understanding where he must go, he goes to the colored side and is congregated by what looks like future college students. Amid the wait time, he sees a group of them conversing, and they stand up together, walk to the corner of the room, and create a V. He's uncertain about the reason, but surely enough, one of the individuals in the V steps into the circle, and they make it small, and he begins to use the restroom. This professor jumps up and says, hey, whoa, what are you doing? You don't do that in public. Much to his surprise, the students look at him and say, you must not be from here. He said, no, but you can use the restroom. And then they looked at his surprise again and said, you're really not from here. But what he did not know is that during those times, in order to keep segregation at its height, many of the public restrooms had a pay change lock on it. And African Americans, if they wanted to use the restroom, would have to pay a price. Put a nickel in it, turn it, you could use the restroom. And as you can imagine, many of these individuals didn't have enough money to use that. So you know what the professor did, and I think is, before I get out of here and get to this benediction and we enjoy the rest of our time, it's important for you all to understand. He stands up and says something. He says, you know what? I'm headed to be a professor at a university. And because of that, they gave me a voucher with a certain amount of money in it. And they said, use it to get here. I will take my money, put it in the lock. I'll open the door. I'll go use the restroom. And when I come out, I'll hold the door. And then the next person, go use the restroom. And then when they come out, they'll hold the door. And the next person, go use the restroom. When they come out, by the time that we get done and our train gets here, everybody will have used the restroom off of one payment. That is the beauty of the Democratic Party. One that I'm not sure we've really recognized over time. Somebody originally paid the price, held the door, and because of our ascension, our need for gratitude, our need to see our name in the lights, we forgot to hold the door for the person coming behind us. I remember being 12, 13 years old. A lot of people think that I'm smart, but I just promise you it's a squishy, mushy head and I absorb a lot. I was watching a PBS special, and I remember the first understanding of politics and why I actually consider myself a Democrat. It wasn't because of Barack Obama. It wasn't because of LBJ or John F. Kennedy, but this young man in 1948 steps out at Philadelphia Convention for the DNC. His name is Hubert Humphrey. And he gives the most eloquent speech saying, for the first time in the Democratic Party, we need to address racial segregation. For the first time, we need to put a plank that's called the Minority Report. And in 1948, Hubert Humphrey gets the Democratic Party to adopt their assertion of the Minority Report. And it's important for two reasons, and where I really want to lay my head. Now, because of that meeting, you get what they call the Dixiecrats. People separate themselves saying, absolutely not. We will not integrate. He said, fine. Harry Truman sweats bullets. But also because of that, we have this understanding of local growth, foundational ideology, and policy trickling up to federal legislation. You see, what I've noticed over this last election period is that everybody likes to talk about how much we hate Trump. I agree. But we never talk about the more important things to me. And I know you all love your, if you live in Huntsville, district representative, your congressional leader, Mo Brooks. No? No. But I think it's important that we ask ourselves, how do people ascend in the majority? Senators, congressional leaders. Well, let's go back in history and ask ourselves. See, Hubert Humphrey was a young upstart. Started early on in Minneapolis and started this structural conversation around desegregation, becoming a mayor early on before he even made his ascension as a senator. You ask for another example. I mean, look at John Lewis. He spends a term and a half as a city council leader, fighting for African American rights and against police brutality before he makes his ascension as a congressional leader. Bernie Sanders. I mean, it don't get more liberal. But if you look at his 8-year mayoral term and his fight, Cory Booker steps out at the age of 27, 28, runs as a Central Ward candidate. Amid that race, he wins, becoming the youngest to ever represent Newark as a city councilman. He then runs against Sharp James at the age of 31, wins, becomes a namesake in Newark. He then runs on a special election and becomes a senator, and then gets to grace the stage of the DNC. I can go on and on and on. Looking for a savior of iconic hope is going to be rare, few, and far between. Creating substantive plans that create and foster the growth of politicians that will impact policy locally and in the future federally carry the policies that help them grow has substance. There's a story told about a small African tribe in Midwest Africa, Sands people. You might have heard them as the Bushmen. One of the things they do with young adolescents as they come into age is take them on a hunt. There's this British physician that comes down. He's enamored by these people. And walking along a trail one day, he sees this young adolescent, 13-year-old boy maybe, small, 5'2", 100 pounds. And he's standing next to a rhino that's about 12 to 15 feet, the story goes. And he looks and he says, "What happened?" And in understanding the language, the boy basically says, "I kill rhino with club." He said, wait. This rhino's tusks are bigger than yours. How did you kill the rhino, this big of a rhino, with a club? Takes the hand of the physician, walks over a mountain, and points down to the hunting club he's a member of. See, what they understood is that we want the boy to experience at an early age what is the lifestyle of our community. We're willing to go out and hunt with him and give him the glory of actually killing the rhino. But we don't want to lose him in the process. For we're going to eat this rhino as a family, as a community. But if we don't work with this child, we will never let him understand what it takes to kill a rhino. We have to do that as a party. We start early, identifying individuals that we can corral around. Introduce them to what it takes to kill a rhino. Localizing the things that we know socially should be at the federal level as a process. And I promise you, the political policy will produce the icon. You asked me to give you an example. I will. Early on, in about the early 1950s, before we get to the bus boycott movement, it's this lady who gets no recognition. She's a teacher named Miss Jo Robinson, locally in the Montgomery area. She's conversing with the NAACP, and she says to herself, "Look, I am tired of getting on this bus to going home, and there's nobody. I got to walk all the way to the. I pay the same price that everybody else does." I said, "Yeah. And she says, "You know what? I'm fed up. I'm not going to move." Well, Joe gets arrested. It makes local paper news. And because of her early sacrifice, people say, "Hold on, wait. They're going to cover the story?" Amid that time, there's a man that you might know, 26, he's from Atlanta. He's a new pastor on the scene. They say he speaks well, got a beautiful wife. His name is Dr. Martin Luther King. And then there's another lady who's actually a secretary at the local NAACP office. You might have heard of her as well. Her name is Rosa Parks. But they see this opportunity and they say, "Hey, never thought of this. Why don't we actually put a movement behind her action?" That localized action by Ms. Robinson led to what we know to be the bus boycott movement. That local legislation led to what many of us know to be the civil rights movement. And that civil rights movement was 20 years after Hubert Humphrey in 1948. It's a process, ladies and gentlemen. One that I'm a product of. If you ever took time to read my 2-sentence long bio, it would talk about this village. How does Devyn Keith get to a moment like this? I can't tell you, but I can point back to all the fingerprints of people, some in this room, who remember me when I was in diapers. I would argue District 1 probably changed my diaper more than my mother did. But there were introductions of moments that had substantial impact on me because somebody shared in that moment what they themselves knew to be important. I'll give an example. The Riggins family comes from Germany. all the way through Texas. I'm in 9th grade. I had never in my life conversed with a family of such affluency. Never experienced what it was like to have a home and that home have a home that has a home. And amid sitting in their movie theater, floored by the grandeur, Miss Riggins, in that moment, with her 3 boys, Stephen, Zach, and Zane, and Mr. Riggins, showed me that no matter the affluency, they value their family over everything. And they were willing, not because of their affluency, thank you, to open their doors to the process of showing me what family looks like. And I'm not saying that to say that you got to take in a knucklehead boy. But I am saying that to say, maybe you are in a realm of which you see people who look just like you. And you're used to conversing with people who sound just like you. They are Republicans and have Trump pin stickers all over everything. It's on a toothbrush. But when I ran for District 1 City Council, they supported me because they knew me. Because they took the time to get to know me. The bipartisanship of all things is understanding. If you go over here on North Crestview as I close, I'm standing there with a friend of mine named Dexter. And rule of thumb during that time frame was, we'll hit the Clinton houses first. And if we got time, we'll come back to these Trump pins. So we're at the top of North Crestview. And we worked our way down that left side, and just so happened, the left side was Clinton, the right side was Trump. I said, well, look at this. And I wish I could do the picture, but I hit those houses so quick, and they said, put a sign up, Devyn Keith. I said, thank you, hallelujah. But before we got out of there, a man pulls up in his Bronco, has on overalls, has a Trump pin sign, and a DT, and he's playing Sweet Home Alabama as he pulls up. No doubt about it who this man was. And we start a conversation. And I say, excuse me, sir, you got some time? He said, what do you want? And I said, if you give me some time, it's actually me asking you, what do you need? And he said, are you out here supporting Clinton? I said, no, I'm actually trying to support myself. He said, you running for office or something? He said, are you a Democrat or a Republican? I said, let me tell you why that doesn't matter. When you drove up here, at the bottom of your street is a pothole the size of one of these tables. You see that lady across the street that I just put the sign up in, she hates that pothole. And I would imagine the reason that you swerved out of the way is because you hate that pothole too. I am running because I want to fix your potholes. Does being Democrat or Republican matter anymore? He took a step back, and with what I would imagine to be a good old country smile, he said, well, darn it, boy, you got my vote.
That's awesome.
And for the first time, amid the picture with me and Dexter, I stand on North Crestview looking up. On the left side, Clinton and Keith. On the right side, Trump and Keith. I love the development of an organization like this. You are the change necessary that is needed to hold the door. But we must ask ourselves, are we cultivating the future? Or are we praying for tomorrow? If you have time now to address local legislators, what are they pushing? Do you know more about what Trump's not doing? Or do you know more about what your representative is doing? Are you spending more time watching CNN? Waiting for the trickle-down effect? Because you can't get more upset than you are right now.
You're right. That's right. You wouldn't think.
But are you addressing, is your city council answering the local issues of trying to decrease the unemployment rate? Are they trying to address the most disenfranchised and distressed and blighted areas of your community? Are you asking yourself, is Tommy Tuberville going to be my next governor? I can't explain to you more as somebody who is experiencing it. As you look at our mayor, 29 years old, he's a city councilman. Comes back, he's a mayor, and now he's running for governor. The growth of most politicians are seen early on, and if you don't keep your eye on it, you might have a representative like Mo Brooks. I want to say this to you. What you are doing right now is beyond important. But again, a seed cannot grow unless it is nurtured. A weed will grow no matter what. Thank you so much for your time.
Does anyone have any questions? We got one in the back there.
Yes, sir, he did. I wrote him a letter the day after I did it. You can go to North Crestview right now. You take a left right by Shogun, and you'll see a fresh pothole field. First order of business. That's great. And you know, I go back over there now, and you know, the deeper point of that story is he tells me of a history that he grew up here, and he lived in that community the majority of his life with his father, and it's his father's home, and he said that he dealt with intrinsic biases. He struggles with the idea of generalizations because of skin of color and where your background is from. And he said that the Lord's working on him. But making that parallel is the new bipartisan talk. Understanding that if you can get to the root of what they believe, left and right of North Crestview, the issue is, which is that pothole, they're willing to support you. And that bipartisan hasn't been grabbed since maybe even the 60s.
Carolyn, did you have a question?
I won't do it right now.
Okay.
Don't tell embarrassing stories.
Right. Didn't a lot of us vote for Obama?
Yes, ma'am?
Yeah. And a lot of us miss him, too.
Absolutely.
Yes, we do.
Without a doubt. You think about Obama, though. Obama goes from House to Senate, then to president. It's all a build rate for the majority of the people we've seen. You look at Governor Watt, the list goes on in Alabama state politics. If they come out of Alabama law, they might be a politician one day. It is truly a mapping, especially when the super Dems happened in the early 90s. They took over state legislation. You've only had 2 elected African male governors. You've only had 2 African American governors, period. Only 8 African American senators. Now, I know we want to increase the female rate, without a doubt. But we have not attacked state legislation the way that the GOP has. And that's why they have so much supermajority in grasp. And people forget, as we look at these states we thought we were going to win, people tend to vote nationally how they vote locally. You want to flip a district, you flip the city first. And if you can get them to support somebody, I tell you all the time, I pray this prayer: God, make Nick Saban a Democrat one day.
For real.
And on that day, I will yell, "Roll Tide" and "Roll Alabama," because we will absolutely be a blue state. Yes, ma'am.
Something that happened just coming here. I live in the southeast, 3501, and as I'm turning the corner from Deborah down to Cars, we go into the back, there's these 2 huge pieces of equipment at the corner. There's 8 men and 2 pickup trucks digging. So I rolled down my window and I said, "What are you guys digging?" And they said, "Oh, we're replacing all these curbs." Now, if there's a problem with that curb, I go by that curb at least 10 times a week.
Yes, ma'am.
There's nothing wrong. Why are we spending all that money on the curb? To me, a pothole anywhere should have been more important. And
Yes, ma'am.
With 4 men. We're placing cards. Why?
I know some of y'all are too young to know this adjective, but have you ever heard squeaky wheel gets grease? There are certain places in town where they squeak, squeak, squeak. And I don't represent those places. And
You might want to come have a look and see how much money is being spent.
yes, ma'am. And I,
It's a huge, 8 men a day and 2 big pieces of equipment.
Hey.
That one corner alone is very expensive to place. They give us a problem, never solved.
yes, ma'am. And I can show you a lot worse. I imagine a lot of y'all love driving up Oakwood, correct? There are a lot of places of which that money would allow us to do more things, but again, that's the argument of representation. Who represents who, and how things get done in certain areas because of representation. And District 1, again, I never expected to be an elected official. I never wanted to run for anything. God blessed me to know policy. I remember I was sitting with Joe Kennedy and Kamala Harris, and they were like, "You should take a picture," and I was like, "Why?" Oh, right, they're important. Like, I just couldn't connect. I didn't have that. I have that now. But I didn't have that in the moment. And now I understand the value of the no names. You know, the people that you don't hear about at local and state levels and governors who make more influential decisions on your life than anybody. And then those people ascend to higher office. And you can't be surprised when they've been doing this for 6, 7, 8 years, that they carry their own policies into the federal level. It is time that we assess who they are early, and you ask somebody to be somebody now that they will be later. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of what you said about the squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Yes, ma'am.
Remember the last meeting you had with us at AAA?
Yes, ma'am, the policing.
Okay, and the city manager was there.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, the post office on Madison Lake Road,
Yes, ma'am.
when you're leaving, they have the signs, stop. You can turn left or right. And then on the outside, on the other side of those signs, they had do not enter. Well, over the years, the rain and the weather just washed those signs clear, and people were just going every which way. So I went to talk to the city manager. What's his name?
John Hamilton.
Right. And I complained about that, because I had complained about it in the post office, because I figured one day they're going to have an accident out there. And 2 days later,
It was changed.
it was changed.
That's it.
Wow.
That's it. And I can promise you, local individuals, because they got to see you at your Walmart and your Dairy Queen, have to hold town halls. We don't get the option of saying we're not holding a town hall. And again, I just want people to understand, Mo Brooks is nobody new. If you follow his career before now, he's just right on line. Hey, young man.
Our headquarters is down there on North Parkway, and if you
Yes,
look on between Oakwood and Sparkman, on the east side it's blighted. There's only 2 or 3 businesses there. On the west side, every place is occupied by a thriving business. Part of it is probably because they took all their parking on
That's
the
exactly
east
right.
side. But are there any plans to kind of help that area along there?
Yes, sir. So we've actually bought everything but the machine shop. We're working our way, again, you have to give time, leases have to be, like the Brunos that's been sitting there since forever and a day. It's so much litigation locked up in it. But you're absolutely right. Because of the parking, that light industry won't thrive anymore. We're going to turn that into a playable park, trees, just a walkable place. But we're absolutely trying to acquire it. We would have been bought it, but they're locked in the lease. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I was going to mention to you that one of the things several of us are involved in is getting voters registered. And we got a voter drive on April 28th at Shaw's News.
Oh, wonderful. I'll share that.
2 to 6 on the Friday the 28th, and we're looking at trying to get the word out so that people know to show up. And the voter ID van from Montgomery is going to be there also.
Great.
That's awesome. I'll definitely share that.
If you can help us, we'd really like to get the word out.
No, I'll definitely, that's not a problem. I have an email blast. I'll send it out without a problem.
Thank you.
No, please do. I'll give you my card after this. Yes, ma'am.
We're also going to be doing voter registration this Saturday at 1:30 at the Huntsville Public Library for 2 or 3 hours.
Oh, okay.
Robin?
You talked about ascending. What is your next ascent?
you gonna fill that vacancy that Van will make?
Oh, man. No. And I wish I could say that you're the first person to ask me. I want to say, as somebody who never thought about getting into politics, you really see a commitment to be true. So when I first ran, I said community policing, economic development, increasing property value, infrastructure change. I'm getting to about 2 or 3 of those, and I'm just hustling. The tough thing about battle leaving is that Huntsville is in such a go mode. Whoever comes behind him it can go 1 or 2 ways. And I know that more now than I knew it before.
That's not the only office you make it.
Yes, ma'am. It builds. It's almost a trickle. And I will say it like this. When somebody uses the verbiage, I use no names, that, oh, I've been to North Huntsville, I've gone through there, but would never tell you they live there, there's a problem. If you can't identify as a mayor, and I tell people, it gets so political. If you can't identify as a mayor, the incremental steps it takes to make your whole city great. Not certain parts of your city, your whole city great. You should not be the mayor of any city. And District 1 needs a mayor who treats District 1 like he's from there. Yes, ma'am.
So what do you see as the 3 most important things Huntsville should be doing right now?
Huntsville as a Democratic Party of the city.
Huntsville as the city.
Right now, we should assess our blight because it could get worse. There are neighborhoods where the income inequality gap is about a mile. So you take Terry Heights, you drive a mile to Twickenham or 2 miles to Twickenham, the value goes up four times. You could sell a house in Terry Heights for $40,000. You could sell a house in the hospital district or even at the Avenue, which is an apartment complex, for $130,000. Income inequality this is how it starts. And what happens is development breeds development, so mid-city will get done and it'll be great. People will move and scurry over there. Once you don't even out and balance the development for places, you start to have a South Side Chicago, East Side Detroit, East Side Atlanta. So first we have to address income inequality, which is where we're spending our public dollars to spur on private development. Secondly, we also have to have, and I say this with all due respect to the police department, I love them with all my heart, we have to address how we're administering justice. It's just a true thing because, again, most of the time when we talk about the issues of Alabama's incarceration rate, nobody starts off in a high-speed chase like shooting at cops. Right. You go back to their record, they usually started in municipal court. Petty theft, petty crime. And we have to address places that have become quote-unquote downtrodden where we spend the most time as police, like policing the area. And ask ourselves, are we connecting with the community or are we asking the community to connect with us? Because you will spur out these issues. We just had a high-speed chase just recently. We looked at the kid's rap sheet, and he's been arrested 4 times. Just the assessment of that on a mental issue as well as the assessment as an administrative issue. And then finally, and I say this, truthfully, we have to continue to spur on private development because we're a subsidiary of Redstone. So goes Redstone Arsenal, so goes Huntsville. I mean, without a doubt. And I'm not saying, this Trump administration, if there was ever any good, I found something at the very bottom. Was that defense contract spending and military spending helps Huntsville. But everybody here is not an engineer. Everybody here doesn't even have a high school degree. And everybody doesn't have the know-how to be a defense contractor. It is great that we get to increase our median income and have the most engineers and PhDs. But you have a large amount of community, not just in my district, of individuals who need manufacturing jobs. Individuals who want to just work 40 hours a week, come home to their kids. And I met a lady in Meadow Hills, and she said, I'm thankful that you're here, but I got to go to my second job, and I got to drop my daughter off at my grandmother's house. And discussing where somebody can make a livable wage at one location is very important. You can't do that on the arsenal.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me share one more thing since I predate most of you in Madison County. In fact, I'm practically a native, I'm from Madison. When I first married, all the city councilmen and school board ran at large. And we still have some good people, but we had the best local government that we ever had. And this city grew from 25,000 to 100,000 run for mayor, she would run for the rest.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think that's the best government, because you know, everybody has tunnel vision when you represent this little district right here. And if they don't go out and knock on doors all over the city, they don't see the disparities and the needs.
Yes, ma'am. And
So
don't say.
whatever comes up for discussion, I'll be there with you.
Let me say this to a wonderfully seasoned young lady. I don't say, oh, my grandma give me, she'll pinch me. I want to tell you, and I don't want to have any dissonance with you, the issue that happens there, as somebody who is from this area of town, the ability for somebody to live 6 or 7 miles away from me, now I'll get to a bigger point on why I'm doing what I'm doing, is that the disconnect is not empathy. You lose the ability of empathy. You don't hear the gunshots. You don't drive on Oakwood every day and hit every bump. You don't see the failing schools and the issues with kids. You know, a guardrail needs to go up so kids can walk, because my grandmother hit a kid while she was driving because they were just playing on the side of the street and just jumped out and hit a kid. So a guardrail needs to go up. These are experiences that if somebody who lived and had the code wouldn't understand. And I absolutely agree that at large offers you the opportunity to get to know the whole city. So my commitment, again, I've lived in Terry Heights, I'm moving to Glen Park, I'm moving to Meadow Hill. These are places that I'm not going to get the most votes. These are places that have been, in a sense, forgotten about in redevelopment. But connecting with these individuals, it forces my pen, and I think all politicians have two pens. A direct pen to get their platform done, and a pen of humbleness that allows them to understand I'm making the decision for the betterment of people. It might not give me the return on investment, but I need to stroke my pen every once in a while to understand from a humble, empathetic point of view, I'm doing right by people who can't vote for me and who cannot give me money. So being a district representative, I find myself using my humbleness pen a lot more than I might if I was an at-large representative. Yes, ma'am.
So I texted you the other day,
Oh.
and I said you were in my dream. Well, I just want you to know.
I told you, the room for women, I'll take it.
Excuse me. He was speaking, and he wasn't Councilman Devyn Keith. There are bigger and greater things to come.
Oh.
That's what my
Thank you.
vision. It was in my dream. He wasn't the councilman. He wasn't the councilman. He was actually congressman in my dream.
Yay.
So, and I told him,
Thank you. And I want to say, Ms. Dorothy, we have a professional history. She is a large reason, especially in the Lakewood area, that I even accumulated any votes. She worked her butt off. I wish I could. Again, we ran a dirt route campaign. We paid people in pizza and Chick-fil-A. I was a little shocked at how quickly people can get tired of pizza and Chick-fil-A. So I'm very thankful for her. She has been a true blessing to me. Dr. Willis is here as well. So many people, Ms. Carolyn, everybody who has been a blessing to me on this process. And again, we have to make a decision to cultivate a seed, because no matter what, the weeds will grow. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Devyn.
Wanted to remind you guys